Good day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where flight controllers belonging to the Orbit 1 team are on console, ready for the first act of an operational doubleheader today, two critical activities for the International Space Station and its 6 residents. Here on console at this hour in the wee hours, Flight Director Zeb Scoville. On the right side of your screen, standing is spacecraft communicator Chris Looper, talking to the space station crew when required throughout the course of the first half of the crew's workday. This first act of this operational doubleheader is taking place a half a world away at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where at this hour countdown clocks are ticking backward under 14 minutes to go until the launch of the ISS Progress 62 cargo ship, loaded with 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 46 crew on board the International Space Station. It is a cold, overcast, gray day at Baikonur, just 6 days following the launch of the last trio of crew members to reach the International Space Station. This Progress was rolled out to the launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the Site 31 launch pad at Baikonur, some 25 miles away from where Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko launched off of Site 1 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome back on December 15th to join 3 other crew members on board the International Space Station. All of the Progress's systems are in good shape, telemetry being received in the blockhouse at Baikonur. The Progress launch vehicle, this Soyuz 2.1A configuration, is the same configuration on which the ill-fated 59 Progress cargo ship launched back on April 28th. A separation mechanism anomaly occurred with the third stage separation that damaged that Progress supply craft back on April 28th and rendered it unable to reach its normal orbit. It re-entered the Earth's atmosphere 10 days later, back on May 8th. Russian engineers went back and did modifications to the third stage separation mechanism and other associated mechanical devices, and they believe that everything is in good shape for this launch of the Progress. This Progress, by the way, is the first of what is called an MS series of vehicles, the MS standing for Modified Systems. Some of the upgraded software, telemetry, and mechanical systems for this upgraded Progress resupply ship include the mounting of additional debris shields on the cargo compartment, the adding of redundant electrical motors to the docking mechanism, replacing the Corps' automated rendezvous system with equipment, upgraded equipment that will provide even finer telemetry from that system back to the International Space Station. They replaced a forward light fixture with an LED headlight to assist flight controllers in the alignment of the Progress for docking. They added GPS satellite navigation equipment to the motion control and navigation system, removed radio orbital monitoring equipment from the vehicle system configuration, and installed an onboard communications system, including S-band satellite communications channels, to replace the older onboard communications systems. So a number of telemetry systems, software systems are in the process of being tested on this shakedown flight of the MS vehicle. As a result, a deliberate 2-day rendezvous was planned and mapped out for the Progress once it reaches orbit 8 minutes and 45 seconds after its launch, which is just 10.5 minutes away. During the next 2 days, the flight controllers of the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, which will take charge of the operation and control of the Progress vehicle en route to the International Space Station. They'll be testing all of those systems in preparation for the docking of the Progress to the Pirs docking compartment. That's coming up on Wednesday, December 23rd at 4:31 a.m. Central Time. At the Baikonur Cosmodrome, you see the Progress vehicle on the Site 31 launch pad. A spacecraft is on internal power. The gantry arms were retracted just a few minutes ago. A short time ago, the propellant filling of the fuel tanks will be terminated, and the booster tanks will be pressurized for flight to help optimize the flow of fuel and to add structural support to the rocket as it sits under its own weight on the launch pad. At the time of launch at 2:45 2:44 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, 2:44 and 39 seconds p.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, where we are looking at those overcast skies, temperatures 27 degrees and snow flurries. The International Space Station will be flying about 253 statute miles over northwestern Sudan. Again, the two-day rendezvous deliberately structured by the Russian flight controllers to test out these new telemetry and software systems and other mechanical systems on this modified system upgraded Progress vehicle. Those upgrades to be incorporated in all future Progress and piloted Soyuz spacecraft in the future. While the countdown heads to the 8.5-minute mark to launch, aboard the International Space Station, the second half of today's doubleheader is well underway as spacewalk preparations are in progress for Expedition 46 Commander Scott Kelly that you see there on the right, and flight engineer Tim Kopra of NASA. This spacewalk, a previously unplanned spacewalk, became part of the mix just a few days ago after the station's rail car, the mobile transporter, became stalled just 4 inches away from the work site from which it was embarking to move to another work site down the starboard truss of the station for payload operations. The mobile transporter is just 10 centimeters or about 4 inches away from a work site called Worksite 4 near the centermost point of the station's backbone or truss. It needs to return to that work site to be latched in place and electrically mated to the work site as a cautionary measure prior to the arrival and docking of the Progress resupply vehicle on Wednesday. That spacewalk is scheduled to begin at about 7:10 a.m. Central Time, about a 3 to 3.5 hour spacewalk, not your typical 6-hour spacewalk, a shorter spacewalk on tap in which we believe that a brake handle inadvertently engaged on the starboard CETA, or crew equipment translation cart. There are 2 such carts on either side of the mobile transporter. It is believed that the starboard cart, the CETA cart, has its brake handle engaged. The crew will go out, move over to the work site where the mobile transporter is stalled. They will take a look. If the brake handle is in fact engaged, they will take steps to disengage the brake handle, and the robotics officer here in Mission Control will send commands to move that mobile transporter just a few inches back to Worksite 4 where it can be latched in place. If the activity goes along in rapid fashion, the crew then will press on to just a few get-ahead tasks and call it a day. The hope is that the mobile transporter will be latched in place, setting the stage for the arrival of the Progress resupply vehicle on Wednesday. Back at the Baikonur Cosmodrome now at the 6.5-minute mark before launch. The Progress loaded with 1,918 pounds of propellant, 57 pounds of oxygen, 48 pounds of air, 926 pounds of water, and 2,804 pounds of dry cargo in the form of supplies and spare parts that will be used by the Expedition 46 crew on board the orbital laboratory. That equates to a total cargo load of 5,753 pounds or 2.8 tons of cargo aboard the Progress vehicle. So the countdown now is inside the 6-minute mark. Everything continuing to go well. With the countdown, the Progress rolled out to its launch pad horizontally on a rail car from the integration facility just a few hundred yards away from the launch pad on Saturday. It was raised hydraulically to its vertical position. Fuel lines and electrical lines were hooked up to the Progress for the final 48 hours of preparations leading to its launch just a few seconds, more than 5 minutes from now. You're looking at the Site 31 launch pad at Baikonur. Once the Progress lifts off, it will be 8 minutes and 45 seconds until it reaches its preliminary orbit for the deployment of its solar arrays and navigational antennas and the start of a 2-day rendezvous to link up to the Pirs docking compartment on the International Space Station on Wednesday. The Pirs compartment was vacated on Saturday In the wee hours on Saturday, with the undocking of the 60 Progress resupply vehicle that had been mated to the Piers docking compartment since July, just a few hours after the 60 Progress undocked, truss cameras on the International Space Station captured the reentry of the Progress and its breakup in the Earth's atmosphere after its deorbit burn. The Progress fell harmlessly back to Earth, breaking up over the Pacific Ocean. Again, the Piers docking compartment now vacated, ready to accept the 62 Progress resupply vehicle once it arrives on Wednesday morning. We're just 4 minutes from launch of the Progress 62 resupply craft from Baikonur. Fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines are being purged with nitrogen to remove vapors of fuel and oxidizer at the time of main engine start. Strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center, on which telemetry from the launch complex is recorded, are in the process of being activated. An extraordinarily busy time frame for the International Space Station, particularly on the Russian side, with the landing of 3 of the crew members of the International Space Station on December 11th, followed 4 days later by the launch of the Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko crew from Baikonur from a different launch pad some 25 miles away from Site 31 that you're looking at the moment. The launch of this Progress to be followed by its docking just 2 days from now. The fuel supply to the Soyuz 2.1A booster has now been terminated. The Progress is on internal power, and all systems are in good shape for launch just 2.5 minutes from now. The fuel and oxidizer tanks are currently being pressurized. Once again, this optimizes the flow of fuel and provides the structural rigidity to the launch vehicle as it sits on the pad. We are 2 minutes away from launch. There are 2 ground umbilicals that are flush against the side of the Soyuz booster. They will back away in sequential fashion at about the 30-second mark and about the 12-second mark, at which point the launch command will be issued for the start of the main engine ignition sequence. About 90 seconds until launch. Everything looking good down in Baikonur. Inside 1 minute until launch. The Progress spacecraft on internal power. The auto sequencing start commands about to be issued. Inside 30 seconds. First umbilical has now been retracted. Standing by for main engine start. The main engine start has been initiated. This will be a 3-step fashion to bring the turbo pumps on the first stage up to flight speed. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 60-second Progress resupply vehicle from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, headed on a 2-day rendezvous to test upgraded systems en route to the International Space Station. All the first stage engines reported to be functioning normally by the blockhouse in Baikonur 40 seconds into the flight. The vehicle stabilization is reported to be normal. About 1 minute into the flight, the Soyuz booster and the Progress resupply vehicle will go through the area of maximum dynamic pressure. Pitch, roll, and yaw, everything looking good on the vehicle. Passing now through maximum dynamic pressure, going supersonic. 1 minute, 18 seconds into the flight. Liftoff time, right on time at 2:44 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, 2:44 and 39 seconds p.m. in Baikonur. All first stage engines performing nominally. Yaw, pitch, and roll of the vehicle all reported to be nominal from the blockhouse in Baikonur. First stage separation is now confirmed. The jettison of the 4 strap-on boosters on the Soyuz has been completed. The Soyuz traveling at about 3,400 miles an hour. That's the Soyuz booster with the Progress resupply vehicle on top. Standing by for the jettisoning of the escape tower and the launch shroud around the Progress resupply craft itself. All parameters reported nominal. Good engine performance reported from the blockhouse in Baikonur. This is a view from a balcony camera overlooking the large International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. Coming up on the 3-minute mark into the flight, this Soyuz booster and the Progress resupply craft traveling some 5,000 miles an hour. All of the structural parameters are normal on the launch vehicle, traveling right down the center line. Second stage thrusters operating normally. About 5 minutes of powered flight remaining for the booster, sending the Progress resupply craft to its preliminary orbit. Coming up on the 4-minute mark into the flight. About 30 seconds left in second stage performance for the Progress resupply vehicle. Atop its Soyuz 2.1A booster. Good control, good stability of the vehicle as it continues to head uphill. Confirmation now received down in Baikonur and by the flight control team in Korolyov of second stage separation. About 3.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. The Progress now flying towards its preliminary orbit on the singular power of the third stage or upper stage engine on the Soyuz 2.1A booster. Third stage engine performance is reported to be nominal. Everything going extremely well so far, almost 6 minutes into the flight of the Progress resupply craft. At the 6-minute mark, everything going by the book. Good reports coming in from the launch controllers in Baikonur. At the time of orbital insertion, the flight will be under the control of the flight control team in Korolyov. You're looking at a live picture from a balcony camera overlooking that cavernous flight control room. Coming up on the 6.5-minute mark into the flight. Third stage performance continues to run as advertised. Third stage shutdown expected at the 8-minute 45-second mark, followed by spacecraft separation and the anticipated deployment of the solar arrays and the navigational antennas on the Progress vehicle. Seven minutes into the flight, everything is nominal, according to the reports being received from Baikonur. As the launch occurred, our two spacewalkers for today, Scott Kelly and Tim Kopra, completed their suit-up procedures. They are in the equipment lock section of the Quest airlock, not monitoring this activity at the moment. They have other things on their mind. They'll be informed of the Progress launch in due course. 7.5 minutes into the flight, about 1 minute and 15 seconds left in powered flight. All structural parameters normal. 1 minute of powered flight remaining. About 30 seconds of powered flight remaining. So far, so good for the Progress atop the third stage of its Soyuz booster. We're standing by now for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation about 10 seconds or so from now. Third stage shutdown confirmed. We have spacecraft separation confirmed, now standing by for solar array and navigational antenna deploy. And we have confirmation of a good spacecraft separation. All solar arrays and navigational antennas have been deployed. The television camera on the Progress has been activated. A perfect ascent for the Progress 62 cargo craft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. So to recap, the launch occurred on time at 2:44 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time. 2:44 and 39 seconds p.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, where the Soyuz 2.1A booster lifted off from Site 31, the second launch of International Space Station hardware and crew members in just a 6-day period. The Progress reaching its preliminary orbit 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch. A good spacecraft separation from the third stage and a nominal deployment of its solar arrays and navigational antennas. And we again have confirmation that all external structures on the Progress vehicle have deployed in nominal fashion. So a perfect launch of the Progress. There will be 2 engine burns to begin the stair-step raising of the altitude of the Progress over the next few hours. This is again a deliberate 2-day rendezvous for the Progress spacecraft so that engineers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, you're looking at a view right there from a balcony camera, so that they can test out upgraded systems as part of the new so-called MS configuration, the modified systems configuration, upgrading telemetry, software, and other mechanical systems on the Progress. These upgrades to be incorporated in all future Progress and piloted Soyuz vehicles in the future. Flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov are monitoring the early minutes of the trek of the newly launched Progress 62 cargo craft to the International Space Station, loaded with 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 46 crew on the orbital outpost. This is again a 2-day rendezvous to the International Space Station, deliberately crafted so that Russian flight controllers can have an opportunity in this shakedown flight of the so-called MS configuration, the modified systems configuration of new software, telemetry, and other mechanical systems on the Progress resupply vehicle. The docking of the Progress to the Pirs docking compartment on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station is scheduled on Wednesday at 4:31 a.m. Central Time. We will begin our docking coverage on Wednesday at 4 a.m. Central Time, 5 a.m. Eastern Time on NASA television. In the meantime, in the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, spacewalk preparations are ongoing. Scott Kelly and Tim Kopra are suited up in their U.S. extravehicular mobility unit spacesuits. Scott Kelly is designated as EV1, or extravehicular crew member number 1. He'll be wearing the suit bearing the red stripes today. Tim Kopra is EV2, extravehicular crew member number 2. The suit he will wear has no stripes. Kelly and Copra's spacewalk today, the 191st in support of space station assembly and maintenance, strictly designed to accomplish one significant task, and that is to assist in the movement of just a few inches of the mobile transporter, the rail car, on the truss of the International Space Station, which became stranded, stalled, stuck just a few days ago, back on December 17th, as it began to move away from work site 4 near the center section of the truss to a starboard work site for robotic refueling mission payload operations. It was deemed by space station managers in numerous meetings that ensued starting on the 17th after the mobile transporter stalled on the rail, that it would be the prudent thing to do, a cautionary approach to have this spacewalk conducted so that Kelly and Copra could assist in the movement of the mobile transporter back a few inches, just 4 inches back to worksite 4, where it can be latched in place and electrically mated in advance of the docking of the Progress 62 cargo craft, which of course launched just 16 minutes ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. It is presumed that a brake handle on the starboard CETA cart, that's the Crew Equipment Translation Aid cart, there are a pair of these carts that are mated to either side of the mobile transporter rail car itself. It is believed that a brake handle inadvertently engaged on the starboard Crew Equipment Translation Aid cart. If that in fact is the case, it should be a relatively simple task for Kelly and Copra to disengage that brake handle, enabling a robotics officer here in Mission Control to send commands to move the mobile transporter just a few inches, 4 inches is all we're talking about, back to its worksite 4 parking place, where it can be latched in place and electrically mated. Again, a cautionary move, but one that requires a spacewalk today by Kelly and Copra to assist in the placement of the mobile transporter back into its correct configuration. To that end, we'll be returning to the air about 2.5 hours from now at 5:30 a.m. Central Time, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time for coverage of this spacewalk designated as U.S. Spacewalk number 34, as Kelly and Copra float out of the Quest airlock to begin what is expected to be a 3 to 3.5 hour spacewalk to take care of the mobile transporter, and if they make quick work out of assisting the mobile transporter back to its work site, then they can press on to a few get-ahead tasks that have been designated for their activity today. This will be the third spacewalk in the career of Scott Kelly. He completed 2 of them in October and November as part of Expedition 45, along with Kjell Lindgren. This will be the second spacewalk in Tim Copra's career. He ventured outside during the STS-127 mission as part of the Expedition 20 crew at that time for a variety of work during a 5-hour, 32-minute spacewalk, the first in his career. So again, we'll be returning to the air at 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Eastern Time with our spacewalk coverage. The spacewalk expected to begin in the neighborhood of 7:10 a.m. Central Time. That'll wrap up our coverage of the Progress's launch to the International Space Station. Again, to recap, the Progress launching on time at 2:44 a.m. Central Time, 3:44 a.m. Eastern Time, successfully reaching orbit 8 minutes 45 seconds later, a nominal third stage separation of the spacecraft from the upper stage of the Soyuz booster that it was launched from under chilly and gray skies at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. All solar arrays and navigational antennas deployed as planned. The Progress en route now on a 2-day rendezvous for a docking to the International Space Station on Wednesday. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage. We'll see you back here at 5:30 a.m. Central Time for our spacewalk coverage. In the meantime, this is Mission Control Houston.